High school can be a weird time in a teen's life. Your voice goes through changes. You start growing hair where there didn't used to be any, and all of a sudden you realize that you have a strange habit of howling at the moon. Okay, maybe not every teen, but if you're Michael J. Fox, most definitely. Luckily, we're here to witness it all because Teen Wolf is not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. I need to get this out of the way real early on because I'm having trouble wrapping my head around this fact because we're going to be talking about Teen Wolf today, the original starring Michael J. Fox. And then I took a look at my notes and realized that this film is almost 40 years old. And instantly, any hair that I have is gone instantly gray. And I'm sure our guest feels the same way today because joining us on the show once again, Chad LaMassa is back. Chad, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Jason. How are you?
I am doing really well. Now, did you feel the same back aching grayness coming in when you realized that this film is 39 years old from the year that we were talking about this?
Not until we just started talking, because I didn't even register until you said it.
It's one of those things where like, oh yeah, no, that's just fine. I used to watch this, and and then you do the notes and like, oh. And all of a sudden you realize you're old. But Chad, you are the one who brought this movie to the table. So what is it about Teen Wolf that made you want to defend this film?
So I just have really good memories of this movie. When we were in high school, our senior year, we were allowed to leave campus if we had free periods. So somehow we managed to have like a 3-hour block of free time. So we would go to my buddy's house, and he had like a Pac-Man arcade cabinet and like ping pong and all this stuff. So we would go over there, have lunch, and just hang out and watch Teen Wolf a million times. So I just have really fond memories of it.
If he's got Pac-Man and ping pong, that is the friend to have when you're in school. Absolutely. Yeah. But
it wasn't main Pac-Man. It was like Miss Pac-Man or Baby Pac, but it was still cool nonetheless.
Bow or no bow, the pack is still there. But that's the thing. And maybe it's a changing with times of films. Back in the 80s, you could sit and watch a film over and over and over and over again, probably because A, you weren't inundated with as many movies that are out there. B, streaming services wasn't even a thing. The internet really wasn't that much of a thing, so that wasn't happening. So you were pretty much limited to the VHS collection. And yes, I said VHS collection. The film came out in 1985. So even when it was released, it's probably still 86. So yeah, VHS collection, unless you had the friend that had the Laserdisc player for as good as that was. So yeah, right. You tended to watch the same films over and over and over again. So a film like Teen Wolf, I absolutely get why that would be one that would be watched over and over because that was the times. That's how you got to, for lack of a better term, sometimes memorize film. Because I will be very honest, there was a time when I could recite the entire Transformers the movie verbatim. Verbatim. I just didn't sing because no one needed to hear that. But we're diving into Teen Wolf. But before we dive into this Michael J. Fox classic, it is time to take this, I'm not quite sure whether it's a basketball film, I'm not quite sure it's a werewolf film, somewhere in the middle, and trailerize it.
In a small town, one teenager discovers that he comes from a long line of supernatural beings with the ability to grow a lot of hair and dunk on people. Now, Scott Howard must come to terms with being the only kid in his year who can grow an awesome beard, become popular overnight, taking the worst team all the way to the finals. Okay, he's LeBron James. Clearly, we're talking about LeBron James. But will his newfound glory put him at odds with his teammates, his friends, and his family Will he shun everyone and continue to dominate on the court? Will he take his talents to South Beach? No. We are not talking about LeBron. Michael J. Fox stars in Teen Wolf. Rated PG for Point Guard of the Year.
You have to think that Michael J. Fox is almost the epitome of Steve Nashness in this, in that definitely playing point guard. And it's funny, as I'm watching this, I'm like, is it the Steve Nash story? Was Steve Nash actually a werewolf? Quite possible.
LeBron wasn't even born when had just been born in December of '84. So he wasn't even a year old when this movie came out. That's crazy.
So let me get this straight. let me get this straight. Teen Wolf comes out, then LeBron comes out. Coincidence? I think not. Now, admittedly, somehow I don't think Scott Howard is making it to the NBA. So actually, I don't think anyone on the Beavers are making it to the NBA. But let's get into the meat of this film. The movie stars Michael J. Fox, James Hampton, Susan Ursitti, Jerry Levine, Matt Lewis, Laurie Griffin, James McCrell, Mark Arnold, and Jay Tarsis. It was directed by Rod Daniel, and this was his first ever feature film as a director. He went on to then direct Like Father, Like Son, K-9, and lots of TV, and sadly passed away in 2012. It was written by Jeff Loeb and Matthew Weissman. And as soon as I saw it was written by Jeff Loeb, I'm like, whoa. I know this name. Because he's been writing and producing tons of superhero animated films and TV shows.
Comic books.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like Jeff Loeb bringing us Teen Wolf, that is freaking awesome. The film had a budget of $33 million and worldwide grossed $33 million, although I'm pretty darn skippy it made that back in VHS sales. When it was released on the August 23rd, 1985 weekend, god damn it, I'm old. But when it was released on that weekend, it debuted at number 2 with $6.1 million. The number one film that week was the 8th week of Back to the Future at $6.9 million. So Michael J. Fox was number 1 and number 2 at the box office the weekend of August 23rd, 1985. I don't know, or at least I don't remember offhand the last time someone had the number 1 and number 2 films in the box office and they were in both. I don't remember a time when that's ever actually happened.
It must have happened with like Ryan Reynolds or somebody like that, or
probably like a Chris Pratt or someone like that with like a Guardians and like a Super Mario or something like that. So
or Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Overlapping, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Forget Barbenheimer. Michael J. Fox is the box office machine in 1985. But I just want to paint a picture here, just to give you an idea of what 1985 looked like. The number 3 film that week was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Volunteers was number 4, and Year of the Dragon was number 5, which I'm somehow surprised that I think we've only ever done one pseudo ninja film on this podcast so far. And that, of course, was Jim Cotta way back in the early days of the show. So, maybe it's time to get some ninja films on there. But the reason why we are here, and not because Chad has awesome taste in films, is the critics. Over at Rotten Tomatoes, this film has an audience score of 52% and a tomatometer of 46%. But time to add a few more numbers to the mix. Over at Metacritic, the film has a Metascore of 25. At IMDb, it is rated at 6.1 out of 10 stars, giving this a 61% rating. And at Letterboxd, it has a 2.9 star rating, giving it a 58% score, giving this film the aggravated aggregate of 48.4%, which is slightly over the tomatometer. But I'm going to ask you, Chad, before we get into this, 46%, too harsh?
Maybe slightly. I mean, it's not a great movie. but it's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, 50, like 50-50 would probably be perfect, but
I'm actually surprised. Like, normally you can have differences between the tomatometer and the audience score at Rotten Tomatoes, and the Metacritic score usually kind of sits somewhere in the middle of that. The Metacritic score at 25 is harsh AF on this film, like almost exceedingly harsh when you consider that the aggregate is at 48.4%. So I have no idea what the critics over at Metacritic are thinking, but we're about to find out. And we're going to start with Michael J. Fox, who played Scott Howard. How was he in this role for you?
um, he was definitely still feeling his way into the movie world. I mean, he was great on Family Ties, but this was his first movie.
Oh, no, 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 no. We have covered his first movie on this show already when our good friend Brian Colburn from My Weekly Mixtape popped over to talk about Midnight Madness.
Oh, that's right.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Was he the lead in that?
Oh, no, he wasn't the lead, but he was a main character.
Okay. But this was his first lead movie then. Because I feel like this was filmed before Back to the Future, maybe. And then Back to the Future came out first, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, there are times when, you know, like you think about the 80s, because it was one of those things where, you know, it took a while in post-production to actually get films from, you know, from shooting to screen. It took a lot longer. And so you could have two films that were filmed roughly around the same time where it's like, okay, well, one's going to release it the other. But to put it into perspective, of course, there was Midnight Madness. Then in 1982, there was a film that looked way far in the future, Class of 1984. And then, of course, Back to the Future and Teen Wolf in 1985. But yes, Family Ties had already gotten really big at that point. So that was key. But then you also had, if you liked the show, kudos to you for noticing this. In the first season of Night Court, Michael J. Fox appears as a guest in one of the episodes as one of the kids who's dragged into the court. And I'm just like, holy crap, that's him. In the same season, in that same season, one of the defendants in one of the cases, Brent Spiner.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and he came back on the new series.
Yeah. Like,
as a guest star.
It is really, really cool when you watch some of those old sitcoms and go, holy crap. Holy crap.
Exactly.
Well, even when you think about it, right, and you go back to some of the films that were in the theaters that week, Volunteers, of course, had Tom Hanks, who played Michael J. Fox's uncle in Family Ties.
He was the one with the drinking problem, right?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I just clearly remember that episode of him, raiding the spice cabinet and finding the vanilla extract. It's vanilla time. Clearly, I watched far too much Family Ties as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
This really did feel, though, like a Michael J. Fox role. And let me clarify. Some actors, you know exactly what you're going to get when they're on screen. Michael J. Fox in this role definitely was Michael J. Fox as you would expect him. Like, I didn't really see too much of a change in his acting until you had films like Light of Day. That one where he really kind of, stretched the acting chops. Of course, also starring with Jenna Rollins and Joan Jett in that film. But there was something about Michael J. Fox's character that I think really fit the role well. Like, Scott is not a bad guy. He's awkward. He's in that awkward teenage stage. He's pining for the blonde that he's never going to get. Like, he is a very relatable teen in this. And the other thing, too, is that, even though this film kind of tries to walk both the teen dramedy and, comedy kind of lines, the werewolves in this film, let's be honest, this is not Ginger Snaps. We're not going to have that kind of, high school based werewolf film. But I think Michael J. Fox was the perfect casting for Scott Howard. Like, I can't think of anyone in the 80s that could have done this even better.
No, I can't either. He was perfect for it.
if you're looking for an awkward teenager who's going through some things, apparently in 1985, that was Michael J. Fox.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to be saying this a few times during this podcast episode. The very first film role of Jerry Levine, who played Styles. How was Styles for you?
Oh, he's so great. He's just so smarmy and, just a hustler. Just always out trying to make money and whatever. And I kind of think like they wanted to base him off of what was the guy in Fast Time? Damone?
Oh,
he kind of has a similar vibe character wise to me.
Yeah, almost a little bit like Matthew Broderick, of course, in Ferris Bueller's Day Off as well.
Or Ferris Bueller, yeah.
Yeah. Like, count the number of different types of sunglasses that Styles has in this film. This character is so 80s. This character is so freaking 80s. Sunglasses all the time, crazy plans and ideas, quick money-making schemes. Like, this was the 80s in one character. Styles is that guy.
Yep.
Like,
totally
willing to do the absolutely crazy anything. I don't think the 80s has ever been so perfectly summed up in one role. And the funny thing is, Jerry Levine apparently still gets recognized, for playing Styles to this day. He said, like, in an interview, like, he'd be like on vacation, people were like, "Hey, it's Styles." It's like, okay, apparently other people watch this film quite a bit as well.
Right.
But I mean, did it feel at times like they were almost putting too much emphasis on Styles as opposed to Scott?
Yeah, there were some scenes where he kind of took over as almost the main character of the movie. But I think he's just a very big personality, the character, and I mean, we all have our friends that they can kind of take you over like that.
Yeah, when you think about, let's take American Pie, for example, right? The main character of American Pie is supposed to be Jason Biggs's character.
Right.
But really, everyone was like quoting Stifler coming out of that film. Yeah. Sean William Scott kind of stole the scene with that. But when it comes to this film, Jerry Levine almost had that Stifler-esque kind of presence in relation to, like, you could see where American Pie draws from when you go back and watch a film like Teen Wolf, and you could see how, Stifler may be the, or Styles may be the 80s version of Stifler.
Yeah, I could see that.
Susan Ursitti as Boof in her second ever film role. Okay, is it just me, or the minute she came on screen, your brain instantly registers Courtney Cox?
See, I was thinking Phoebe Cates.
I can see that. I can very much see that.
Like, I feel like they wanted Phoebe Cates, couldn't get her. They're like, oh, this girl sort of looks like her. We could get that. We could use her.
Right? There are some actors out there where it's like, you could tell you had this actor in mind, but you couldn't get that actor. Like, I have a feeling like Keegan Connor Tracy is kind of like that. It's like, we wanted Rachel Lee Cook, but we couldn't get her, so we'll get Keegan Connor Tracy. Or there are other actresses that are out there like that. Like, if you can't have Jessica Chastain, so you go get Amy Adams, right? There are some who feel almost you can't get Allison Hannigan. Let's get Jayma May. It's like there are those kind of actresses where it's like, or you can't get either of them. Let's get Isla Fisher. Sure, no problem. But the thing with Susan Ursitti as Boof, and I mentioned that Styles was very much the 80s character. This was the 80s girl. Short, dark hair, cute, cool, always overlooked for the blonde. Like, I don't mean to say it's tropey, but Boof feels a little tropey at this point.
Oh, she absolutely was. I mean, that's exactly what I mean.
I mean, also when you think about it, though, she pairs well with Michael J. Fox in this.
She does.
Like, you see them walking down the sidewalk, and they feel like they're the kind of people who would be lifelong neighborhood friends. She kind of crushed on him and whatnot, but you could understand the friendship even when she was playing basketball with Scott's dad, right? This is very much that very wholesome, small town kind of, friendship that would eventually at some point, burst into something a bit more than that. I got a thing though. So in the party scene, when Scott and Booth kind of get locked in the closet, that scene feels out of place in this film.
It kind of does. It seemed like a fraternity because I don't know what the two people were rolling around on the floor, what they were trying to do in the whipped cream or whatever.
Yeah, I think they were trying to get out of like having their hands tied, but they had to do it lying down on the floor covered in whipped cream, which, okay, sounds like a good time, sure. But the thing is, like, Booth clearly has a crush on Scott. There's no question about this. They're locked in the closet, okay, and she makes her move, and they start making out and all that. And of course, then he gets all like clawy because he's starting to turn into a werewolf for the first time. And then it's never really mentioned again. Like, he gave her air vents in the back of her shirt, and that's never brought up again. Like, that's a Scott thing. Apparently that happens.
It is true.
Like, it felt out of place. I'm not saying it felt out of place in the script. I think it felt out of place at that moment in the script. This feels like something where it should have been a little bit later, where maybe Pamela has started to talk to Scott, and then Booth starts to make her move because she realizes she's got to, get in there before Pamela comes to her senses or whatever. It just felt weird at that point in the film.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, if they had kind of flipped it so that Pam, like you said, had started to flirt with Scott a little bit more or whatever.
Yeah.
That would have made a little more sense a little later.
And also the fact that she actually slapped him pretty freaking hard. Like,
she did.
How, which apparently she had never actually done a quote unquote stage slap, and she actually did cuff him pretty darn good.
Wow.
Not on purpose, just happened to be. But it's one of the things where it's like, how is that scene never brought up again? Like, he clawed the out of her clothing. She cuffed him right upside the head. How is that not ever brought up again?
Maybe it was cut out in a deleted scene.
It's quite possible. It is quite possible because obviously there are deleted scenes for certain films. And apparently the TV version, like the made-for-TV version of this, takes out 2 scenes and puts in 3 more. So maybe, people rolling around in whipped cream doesn't make it to TBS. I don't know.
Right.
But I liked Booth. She made sense. And yeah, Phoebe Cates, Courtney Cox, very much that kind of vibe. Like, the minute she comes on the screen, it's like, am I watching an episode of Misfits of Science? Because this feels like Courtney Cox in Misfits of Science.
Yeah, I can see that.
Laurie Griffin, who played Pamela in her first ever film role, the attractive high school blonde that Scott pines over, the girl that is completely and utterly out of his league. Your thoughts?
I mean, she was your typical obnoxious, bratty blonde high school girl, trope from the 80s. She very much like the girl in Revenge of the Nerds. Like it's very tropey character.
When you think about it, this is the girl that the main character wants when he should be looking at the girl that's right beside him already. Like, oh my God, how many freaking films? How many freaking films? How many?
Especially in the 80s.
Right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, Pamela seems really strangely written. And hear me out. So yeah, she's the attractive blonde going out with the mean jock boyfriend. But yet, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, even before the change to the wolf, she starts talking to him. And then all of a sudden, like, she's a wolf. And then, she's like, throwing himself at him and like, taking off her clothes and jumping his bones in the dressing room. And then it's like, yeah, but I got a boyfriend. Like, what the hell is Pamela doing? And also, is she the only person in this damn play? Because she seems to be the only person actually rehearsing for this damn play, with this director that I'm just like, what? There's some weird dynamic going on there too. Like, Pamela seems very strangely written.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that maybe there was some kind of relationship uh, besides director actress between
Yeah.
her and the director.
Yeah, it felt that way.
Yeah,
And I understand the thing with Mick, right? It's the jock boyfriend. It's the
right.
it's the lead actress slash kind, the kind of girl who would be the lead cheerleader kind of thing. Like again, very tropey. But Pamela just seems like the village bicycle at this point. And
Yeah,
maybe they wrote her that way so you don't want Scott to get with her.
that might be.
Like make her unlikable enough so even though Scott has a thing for her, you the viewer do not want that to happen. I understand that. I do. I completely get it. Make people unlikable so when they get turned down, you're like, yeah, but
Exactly.
which kind of happened at the end. By the way, 39-year-old film, spoilers like a mofo. But because Pamela is so unlikable, when you have that moment where, the Beavers win the game and, Scott is raised up above everybody and comes down and she like gets in front of Booth so she can be the first person to see him. And he like just scoots right by her and goes right to Booth. You're like, goddamn right. That's how you do it, Scott.
I kind of cheered again yesterday.
Right? And it's like, yeah, take that. Bitchy Southern actress woman. But anyways, the thing is, if you're going to make the character unlikable, that's completely fine. Then Pamela was perfect for that, and Laurie Griffin played her very well. It's okay. It's like a villain in wrestling. You want to not like the heel. And if you boo the heel has done their job well. We booed Pamela, Laurie Griffin, kudos. Mark Arnold, who played Mick, her boyfriend, who clearly has an open relationship, it feels like, I guess. Like, again, your thoughts.
I feel like he looked like he was like 35 in the movie. I mean, he was fine. He was just kind of a nothing character, just kind of there, just to be a foil almost, to keep Scott away, and I don't know, just to kind of be in the way.
Yeah, I mean, again, your typical angry kind of jock boyfriend, picking on the main character who, of course, is slightly awkward. And again, not necessarily first film role, but first film role where his character actually has a name. Mark Arnold was in Endless Love in 1981. He was listed as patient. I'm assuming that was what he was and not how he was on set. But if you're going to have someone who is that trope, get someone who's going to go full in on the trope, because Mark Arnold does that. You don't like Mick at all. No. He is the most hateable character, probably more so than Laurie Griffin, because, of course, he punched Michael J. Fox. You don't want him to do that. But there's that moment in the end basketball game where he's staring down Michael J. Fox during the free throws, and he can't do anything about it. He can't do a damn thing. He just has to stand there and stare. Also, how did the refs just let him, stand there and stare him down?
I know. Yeah.
Like,
he would have had to go to the bench.
Yeah. That kind of feels like someone taking a free throw in a UNC game and you're not playing for UNC. Like, there's a whole lot of things being, waved around back there. How does the ref sit there and let this dude just stare him down? That seems sus, but whatever.
And I got to say, as a Duke fan, that UNC reference just really hurt me.
Hey, I'm just saying. I
know.
I mean, at least we haven't started, referring to this film as, Hoosiers Light, I guess. But still, but there's that moment though, like during that stare down, and Michael J. Fox hits the first free throw, and you can see him like all of a sudden realizing that it's one shot and he can't do anything. He just has to sit there and take it, and then fate literally Kawhi Leonard's this shot right into the basket. And I say that, knowing that Raptors run to the finals, that shot against Philly in Game 7, whoo, could the ball have bounced any more for Kawhi in that moment, which it kind of felt like in this. But then as soon as it goes through for that second free throw and the game's over, and you just see him like close his eyes and realize that he He's lost. He has lost to Scott.
Right.
And he can't do anything. There's a lot of really good acting by Mark Arnold in that moment. And
just in his face, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, for the record, you mentioned that he felt like 35. I want to give you a painted image here. So Michael J. Fox was 23 years old when he was in this film. Jerry Levine, who played Styles, was 27. Mark Arnold was 27 years old when he made this film. But you got a really good moment out of him in that moment. And I think it really put a cool cap on the whole end basketball game. And then, of course, cue your bad music. But, that's regardless.
That song's terrible. It's so bad.
Okay. You mentioned this. We need to go here now. Because you mentioned it and I kind of mentioned it as well. The music in this film.
There's 2 good songs.
And I'm assuming that Win in the End is one of those good songs that you're about to mention.
No.
No?
The Beach Boys. And there was the Bee Gees. Isn't the Bee Gees in there?
I know the Beach Boys are definitely in there.
They're doing the van surfing.
Yeah.
There's another song. I can't remember what it was now. Shoot. I should have written it down.
Let's talk about Miles Goodman for a second here, who is the score composer for this film. This is one of the most intrusive scores I think I've ever heard. And it's so bad and so repetitive and so, for lack of a better term keyboard clunky. Like, I don't normally harp on the score, and sometimes the score is the best part of the film.
Right.
That is not the case in this case.
No, not at all.
There were times I'm like, I wanted to pull the plug on the Casio keyboard that they were using to make the score for this film.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much right on that.
Like, when they're playing the final basketball game and that song Win in the End comes on, I'm like, okay, this one's not bad. It's your typical 4-chord progression song. And by the way, if you want to know what I'm talking about, go listen to the Axis of Awesome do the 4-chord song. It's every single pop song ever made. But yeah, that last song, after the game is won, Shooting for the Moon, pretty darn cheesy.
Very cheesy.
Like, there's not much I would change in this movie. That score has got to go.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that.
James Hampton, who played Harold Howard, Scott's dad, I liked him in this. But your thoughts?
Oh, I did too. I mean, he's just one of those character actors that I think he's always fantastic in whatever he's in, but he's very unassuming, so you don't even realize he's there. Like, or that, I guess he's one of those guys that's like, oh, it's that guy. I know him from whatever,
Yeah.
And he's just so great in just everything. And I think I could see him being Michael J. Fox's dad. I think they did a good job with that casting.
Yeah. Like, we're so used to the idea of Michael Gross being Michael J. Fox's dad because, of course, many years of family ties. James Hampton felt like Michael J. Fox's dad. He really did. And it's this calming presence, the fact that he's also a werewolf and that he's kind of made peace with that. Like, there's a lot about Harold Howard that works for this. Like, he's calming. He is that they have a very small life. He runs the hardware store. Scott works at the hardware store. It's a very small town, very small life, even though the fact that they're werewolves.
Right.
But the fact that Harold seems to have made peace with this fact, right? And this is kind of what he's hoping. And he never yells at Scott about the things that he does as the wolf. He never, brings him down, never belittles him, because he recognizes that Scott needs to make these choices for himself. Harold is almost the perfect dad for this.
Yeah, he absolutely is. I guess he made a lot of mistakes probably when he was first experiencing that, and I guess he has to let Scott, do the same thing.
Yeah,
and become his own wolf. I guess.
Like, that's the thing. You take a look at Michael Gross as the father of Alex P. Keaton, and it's almost like Alex didn't want to be his dad because his dad was more of a free spirit kind of thing, like a hippie growing up, and then they just had this uber business sense Wall Street type kid. Here it makes sense. It makes utter sense. It's funny. I was reading this quote that apparently that James Hampton was looking for guidance on the character, and the director said, Harold is the kind of guy that knows how to make a casserole. And that is almost the perfect sentence to sum up how Harold is in this film. He's the guy who knows how to make a casserole, and I'm kind of cool with that.
That seems like an apt description. That's
like I don't know how someone comes up with that kind of description, but that is brilliant casting direction right there.
It is.
Jay Tarsis, who plays Coach Finstock. I have thoughts, but I want to hear yours first.
Oh, I love him. He might be my favorite character in the movie. Just his advice, the 3 rules that he gives him about the what is it? Never play cards with someone named after a city.
Never get involved with a woman with a tattoo of a dagger on her body, and never get less than 12 hours sleep. Stick to that. Yeah. Everything else is cream cheese.
Exactly.
I think the thing with Coach Finstock here is that I don't know, like, you give character direction to Harold, guy who knows how to make a casserole. That makes sense. I'm curious what the direction was for Coach Finstock, because in one hand, he's very aloof. He's very unhappy with his situation in life, kind of thing. He's the high school coach of a team that absolutely sucks. He knows he's not going anywhere. It's whatever, right? But he's also a little goofy and has those interesting nuggets of wisdom kind of thing. And it's just like, I don't know if he knows what kind of movie he's in. Because, again, this movie does straddle both lines. At one side, it's a coming-of-age story for Scott. And on the other hand, it's a freaking 80s comedy. Coach Finstock feels like he's playing more comedy, and the rest of the movie steers more towards coming-of-age story. And I'm not sure if Finstock works as well in the film. I know he's one of your favorite parts, but I'm just like, this is the one time I'm like, did we have the right guy for this role?
Maybe not. Was he? I feel like he was a stand-up at some point. So maybe he was just improvising a lot of stuff.
I mean, it's very possible. This feels like the kind of film that may have had a bit of a lighter hold on things. But yeah, like Jay Tarsis is, he's good. I'm not saying he's not good, but I'm just I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if they kind of toned him down or taken him out, it wouldn't take that much away from the movie, I'm guessing. So
yeah, for the record, this of course was his final film. He was of course in Days and Nights of Molly Dodd. He was in My Boys and Franklin and Bash, but he never was in another film. He also appeared in 2 episodes of Family Ties, and he was also in The Great Muppet Caper. So kudos there.
That's right, he was.
But the thing is with Jay Tarsis is that I wish they'd given him a bit more direction as far as the character, or at least as far as the direction of the movie goes. But maybe it's one of those things when they filmed his scenes, the film was going in one direction and they felt like it, in post-production went another direction. And then they gave it to the Miles Goodman to score. And Miles Goodman made it feel like Halloween 3 with that score. I'm not going to lie.
That's not a good.
It's not necessarily good. I mean, Halloween 3 has its faults. It also has its charms as well. And we, of course, have covered that movie on this show before. But I don't know. Like, I think Finstock works in some cases, and in others, I think he's totally off for the moment of the film.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's kind of. But maybe it's like you were saying, maybe post-production stuff got taken out or moved around, and it just kind of changed up the character a little bit.
I mean, I'm all for him like trying to forfeit the game, but but it's just one of those things where if the film, I think, leaned more into the comedy aspect of things, then yes, Finstock definitely works.
Right. Yeah.
James Mackerel, who played Mr. Thorne, the principal of the school, who clearly has it out for Scott, of which we all of a sudden discover later on. Your thoughts?
Yeah, he was your typical 80s, although he was only vice president or principal, wasn't he?
Oh, you're right. Yes,
Or-
yes.
yeah. So I think he's doesn't even have the full amount of power. So he's still unhappy because he's only made it to vice principal, and he's very upset with his life, I think, and he didn't get the girl that he wanted, so he's, his probably a whole trajectory off of that. Things just never went his way again. And so he's just living in, wallowing in that, self pity or whatever, and just taking it out on the students, and especially Scott because of the history with his dad.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of tropes, the principal, or in this case, the vice principal, the assistant to the regional manager,
Exactly.
Clearly having it out for the main character student kind of thing. Kind of tropey. It's fine. It's the, rebel against authority kind of 80s kind of feel. But there's that moment where he thinks he's got Scott, and he thinks he's going to be able to kick him into school, and then Harold shows up, and it's like that moment. And I think that's more it's not necessarily a James Macro moment, but it's more a James Hampton moment where Harold is like, you haven't changed, have you? And just starts walking, and in that very Harold Howard kind of tone that we've come to love through the whole film, it's like, yeah, like he's putting Thornton in his place, and he doesn't even have to raise his voice. Like that is a very calm danger. You're just like, oh, this is good. This is good. Like that scene was done very, very well. But I think with Mr. Thornton, like you want to not like him. It's not like, the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off where you really don't want to like him. But this is just that annoying gnat of a character that you want to see get swatted down. And Harold didn't even have to go full wolf on this. All he had to do was give a little growl, and all of a sudden he's peeing himself, which hilarious. But again, make someone unlikable so when they get their moment, you're happy.
Yeah. And can we talk about those growls? They were not good. That's those sound effects. I mean, come on, they could do Chewbacca in the 70s, but they can't make like a decent sounding growl for this movie 10 years later.
Yeah, and if memory serves, the director was actually the one who was doing kind of the ADR for the growls, and running through a few processors or whatever. Like, I get it. I do. I mean, it's not a big budget film.
No, but you can have a better sound effect than that.
Oh, you absolutely can. But the thing is, if you only have a budget of $33 million, and this is like 80s money, $33 million. So of course they did a lot of work with the look of the wolf, with a lot of the stunt actors, which apparently, for the record, Jerry Levine Styles, that was actually him on the roof of the van. They actually had a safety wire that was run through his pants connected to the van. So no stunt roll there.
Right. Wow.
Clearly they had a stunt wolf, on the roof of the van doing, backflips and whatever.
Right.
Which,
yeah, that was in the credits.
Yes.
So, the van wolf, and I think there's also a stunt dance wolf. Yes. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, because apparently Michael J. Fox couldn't dance for nothing.
Right.
Also, apparently there is a lot of footage of the worst basketball you've ever seen played.
Oh, it's not great.
No, because you can see the same play from different camera angles throughout that end game. Because, you got 3.5 minutes of a song to fill, so you're going to have to find ways to shoot it here and there. It's not a big budget film. Yes, the wolf makeup looks good. It does.
I thought so.
And it's consistent throughout. So clearly they did a lot of work in making sure that the wolf doesn't look, too bad kind of thing. There were moments during that first transformation where they'd cut back to like different parts. I'm like, ooh, they put a whole lot of prosthetic on that face there. But
yeah.
And then of course, like, we get to see Harold as the wolf that one moment. And it's like, oh, he's an adorable looking wolf.
Right? Just looks like Grandpa Wolf.
You want to pet that wolf. That's the thing. He looks like the bestest boy who just wants the bacon treat.
Yeah, and I think it holds up because I think practical effects hold up better than CGI.
Oh,
So
practical
it's
effects always
still,
hold up better.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you take a look at some of the films from the 80s, the fact that Legend still works today with Tim Curry in that, the darkness makeup and the horns and,
right.
like that works because that was real. This works because it's real. And you could still see Michael J. Fox in the makeup, which is key.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you can't hide that pretty face of his. Yeah.
Right? We're going to take the most bankable star of the 1980s and completely cover him with hair and makeup so you can't tell it's him. No.
Right.
You
No,
need
we're
to,
not doing that.
No, you need to still see him, which, kudos to him because apparently when he and his basketball stunt double were playing basketball in that makeup, the makeup, stopped them from eating. So they had to have milkshakes and all that just so they could actually eat.
Oh, jeez.
So
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Did you see how long he was in the chair for the makeup anywhere?
I don't know, but the thing
I was just
is,
curious.
Yeah, no, you have to think that there's a lot going on there. And, it's not bad at all. You don't see the lines of the makeup. You don't see the lines. They did a damn good job of making that. You could see where the $33 million went.
Yeah. Yeah. It probably did mostly go to that at the expense of some other things.
Do you mean like music?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like music.
Sorry, I don't mean to pick out Miles Goodman, but this score was
That
just
was fine.
It was
You can. Feel free.
It was a touch much. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Although that being said, if anyone ever does a rock version of "Win in the End" today, I'm in. I want to hear that.
I can hear the Foo Fighters doing it.
Oh, if ever that's a challenge to any band out there. There's a song in this soundtrack called "Win in the End." If you want to do a very hard rock version of that song, I want to hear it. I really want to hear it.
I do too now. I didn't until you said it, but now I do.
I mean, don't be doing "Shooting for the Moon." No one needs to hear that. But "Win in the End," I'll listen to that. All right, Chad, we have come to the end of the show. But before we go, it is time to name our MVP. So, Chad, it's a basketball game. It's also a movie. Who is your MVP of this film?
I'm gonna go with Michael J. Fox. He's just so much fun in this movie, and I think he's having a good time doing the movie. So that when you can tell the actors are having fun, like when I was on for the Foo Fighters Studio 666, those guys were just having so much fun making that movie, and I feel like Michael J. Fox is having just so much fun making this one. So I'll go with him.
It's funny you mentioned that it looked like he was having fun. Apparently, according to IMDb, he disliked this film so much.
Oh, wow.
That he refused to return for the sequel because the sequel, Teen Wolf 2, TOO, stars Jason Bateman, brother to his TV sister Justine Bateman. But yeah, no, apparently there is a quote here that says Steven Spielberg's down the street making great movies and I'm playing a werewolf.
All right, well, maybe I take it back then.
But no, he does it well. He does it very well. And I don't think this film is as good and as, rewatchable if it's anyone but. I don't know if you could put Matthew Broderick in this role. You're trying to think about actors around that time. You put Matthew Broderick in this role, and I don't know if it works as well. Because Matthew Broderick could have been Styles. Absolutely.
Yeah, I could see him as Styles, but
maybe
not as Scott.
No. But for me, my MVP goes to Boof, Susan Ursitti. And again, it's one of those things where her very presence on screen, she's likable. She makes Scott likable because she's so likable. It's if anyone's friends with Boof, they must be okay, right? When she's playing hoops with his dad, that's a very wholesome scene. There is a lot good about Boof. And even though she fits the 80s mold, she fits it perfectly to the point of maybe surpassing some of those other actresses. And I don't know if it works as well if it's not Susan Ursitti in that role.
Yeah, I mean, she just seems perfect to me in that role. I can't imagine anybody else doing it at this point.
She is literally the perfect girl next door for the girl who's basically next door to Scott.
Right. I do have an honorable mention for my MVP, though.
Let's hear it.
Did you catch this? During the closing credits, a guy stands up in the bleachers and his pants are open and his zipper's down. Did you catch that?
So I didn't catch it when I first actually watched it, but there is apparently a story behind this.
Because I've always wondered he was getting freaky up in the bleachers during the game or something. What's going on here? I just remember when I was in high school and we saw that, it just went into hysterics. We were like, what is this? What is this guy doing?
All right. I am going to read this verbatim off of IMDb because this apparently explains the story of this. So when Scott sinks the final shot and wins the game at the end of the movie, he goes into the stands and hugs his father. Immediately behind them is an extra in a red sweater who can be seen with an unzipped fly. This incident later resulted in an internet rumor that the extra is a man exposing himself. However, the unmatted full-frame version of the film reveals that the extra is actually a young woman. Apparently, her pants were too tight, so she unbuttoned and unzipped them so she could sit down on the bleachers. Filming commenced, and when she stood up later, while the final scene was being filmed, she buttoned and zipped up her pants.
Okay.
So
that's actually a girl. Okay.
Yeah, apparently. According to IMDb, which also...
Yeah, anybody can post on there.
How do you not know the camera is rolling?
Right.
If this story is true, I understand if your pants are too tight. It was the 80s. We get it. You pop them open so you can sit down on the bleachers. Okay, I'm fine with that. Wait till someone says cut before you decide to stand up and be like, I'm good now. Shouldn't have had that Kraft truck food there. Too many sandwiches. Because Kraft truck food is good but fattening. So just turn around even. Turn around. Like there are cameras around. It's like the people who are like, gotta go to the bathroom. I'm gonna go right under the security camera. No.
Right.
No. Wait till someone says cut before you stand up and zip up your pants. Degenerate extras. All right, Chad, thank you so much for this. Now, before we go, please remind our listeners where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
I basically only have an Instagram account. It's BrodyQuinn8. Just all one word. I don't think there's any underscores or anything. Just BrodyQuinn8. BRODIEQUINN and then the number 8.
All right, dude. Thank you so much. And you guys, there is a mic waiting for you whenever you want to come back on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And to you, dear listeners, you guys know the drill. Turn around when the cameras are rolling to do your pants. But aside from that, if there is a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned, or there is no way on the basketball court that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at NotThatBadcast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out our back catalog of shows, which is about 140 episodes deep. We got you covered. Until next time, he's Chad, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is It's Not That Bad, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.